Have you ever walked into a space with a clear vision and how things were supposed to go, then everything unfolded differently? And suddenly you feel exposed, unsure, maybe even unsafe in your own body. That's what I want to talk about today. Hey, I'm Aurélie Zephyr, a licensed therapist, and this is Wapkute Mapkute. You are listening to me, I am listening to you. Recently, I found myself in a space where I had a very clear vision of how things were supposed to unfold. I had imagined the energy, I had imagined how I would show up, I had imagined how others would feel. And then reality looked very different. In that moment, something shifted inside of me. It wasn't loud at first, it was subtle. But my nervous system felt it immediately. I started noticing thoughts coming up. Thoughts about whether I was doing enough, whether I was showing up the way I wanted to be seen, whether what I was offering even had value. And underneath of all that, there was a feeling of losing control. Not control over people, but control over the vision I had created in my mind. And that's when I realized something important. Sometimes, when things don't go as planned, it's not just disappointment. Sometimes, it's an old part of us waking up. Because what I noticed later was that I didn't express my needs in that moment. Even though part of my body felt uncomfortable, I stayed quiet. And if I'm honest with you, that's not new for me. There's a younger version of me who learned that keeping things smooth, keeping things easy for everyone else felt safer than asking for what I needed. So instead of saying, hey, this would help me feel safer, I adjusted myself. But when I slowed down, I realized it was deeper. It was about vulnerability. It was about being seen in a way that felt unfamiliar. And it was about a younger part of me who still carries the belief that expressing needs might make things harder for others. So after everything happened, I had to pause. Not just pause externally, but pause internally. I had to sit with feelings that were big, feelings of exposure, feelings of uncertainty, feelings of wondering if people saw me at my worst instead of my intention. And to be honest, that was not easy. Because when vulnerability shows up unexpectedly, our nervous system wants to either shut down or fix things quickly. But I did not want to wash past it. I wanted to understand it. I had a support from a good friend who gently helped me see that maybe what was happening wasn't just about the experience. Maybe it was about an old strategy my younger self created. A strategy that said, don't be difficult, don't ask for too much. Make people comfortable. And once I saw that pattern, I could not unsee it. That awareness didn't make the feeling disappear immediately, though, but it gave me language. And sometimes language is the first step back to safety. After I understood the root of what was coming up, I intentionally brought my nervous system back into balance. And I want to say this clearly because it's important. Regulating your nervous system doesn't mean avoiding your feelings. For me, it looked like returning to experiences that feel familiar and safe. I started watching shows I used to love. I started listening to things that reminded me of time when my body felt lighter. Not to escape, but to remind my nervous system that safety still exists. There is a difference between numbing and nurturing. I wasn't bypassing what happened. I was holding it while also giving myself comfort. And sometimes healing looks like that. Holding truth in one hand and softness in the other. Even after expressing myself and understanding the truth, there was still something lingering. Have you ever felt that feeling? Where logically you understand what happened, but your body still doesn't feel settled? Well, that's where I was. And that's when I knew I needed something deeper. So I decided to write a letter to my younger self. Not because she was wrong, but because she needed reassurance. In that letter, I told her that vulnerability isn't something to be ashamed of. That being seen, even imperfectly, doesn't mean she failed. I reminded her that this journey will ask her to step into spaces that feel new, unfamiliar, and sometimes uncomfortable. But I also told her something very honest, that I'm learning too, that we are growing together, that I don't expect her to be fearless, but only willing. And as I wrote those words, something shifted. My body softened. The lingering tension started to release, not because the experience changed, but because my relationship with myself changed. And maybe you've been there too. Maybe you've had moments where things didn't unfold the way you imagined, where you question yourself, where you stayed quiet just to keep the peace. If that's you, I want to invite you to pause today. Not to judge yourself, but to listen. I'm sharing this with you not because everything has to go perfectly in order for healing to happen. Sometimes healing happens because things don't go the way we imagined. Sometimes it's in the discomfort, in the pause, in the moment where we feel unsure, that we meet parts of ourselves that have been waiting to be seen. Sometimes it's about turning inward. Sometimes it's about turning toward the part of you that felt unseen and saying, I am here now. If you've ever found yourself staying quiet just to keep things smooth, if you ever avoided expressing your needs because you didn't want to be too much, I want you to know that you were not alone. And maybe there's a younger part of you that deserves a letter too. Before we close, I want to share something briefly. I recently created a space called Lakai Within, a place for Haitian women to slow down, reconnect with themselves, and feel held in community. And what this recent experience reminded me is how important safe spaces are. Not because everything will always go perfectly, but because growth happens when we allow ourselves to keep showing up with compassion. The next Like I Within gathering will be on March 10th. And if you've been longing for a space to pause and reconnect with yourself, I would truly love to see you there. You'll find the details in the show notes. Thank you for tuning in to Wapkutim Mapkutil. If this episode resonated, subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who might need it. And remember, keep prioritizing yourself, keep learning, and let's heal, grow, and thrive together.